The rain on three did not fall gently. It struck the ground like needles, hard and cold, turning the dusty settlement into a maze of muddy streams. Most people stayed inside on nights like this, hiding from the storm and from the loneliness that often came with it. But Elias, a quiet human engineer who lived on the edge of town, kept his workshop lights glowing long after everyone else slept. His workshop was his world, old tools, rusted processors, broken machines waiting for new life. It was small, dimly lit and cluttered, but to Elias it was home. And on this stormy night, he sat at his workbench repairing a damaged power coil, humming faintly to keep himself awake. The storm had been going on for hours, yet he worked patiently, as he always did. He never expected anyone to knock on his door at such a late hour. He especially never expected someone like her. At first he thought the sound was just thunder, a distant, heavy thud, but then it came again, sharper, trembling slightly. A knock. Elias wiped his hands on a cloth and stood up, confused. Who in their right mind would be out in rain that felt like knives? When he opened the door, the storm pushed in like a wild animal. But standing in the middle of it was something stranger, something fragile and broken. An alien woman with silver-pale skin, shaking violently as rainwater dripped from her tangled hair and torn clothes. Her eyes, bright, star-like, and full of fear, lifted toward him. "Please," she whispered, her voice weak, "please help me." Elias froze. He had seen other species before, miners, merchants, travelers, but never someone so clearly terrified. Her arms were wrapped around herself as if trying to hold her body together, and around her neck, glowing through the wet strands of hair, was a heavy metallic collar covered in red symbols. A slave collar. The sight hit Elias harder than the storm ever could. His breath caught in his chest. Slavery existed on distant planets, in dark corners of the galaxy, but not here, not on a small frontier moon where people mostly tried to mind their own business and survive. Yet there she was, standing before him, drenched and trembling. Before Elias could speak, her legs buckled. She nearly collapsed against the doorframe. Instinct kicked in faster than thought. He reached out, catching her before she fell. "You're freezing," he said softly. "Come inside." She looked at him with wide, uncertain eyes, as if unsure whether humans could be trusted. The collar around her neck blinked faster, sensing her fear. Elias felt anger stir inside him, not at her, but at whoever had put that device on her. "You're safe," he whispered again, guiding her gently inside. "I promise." The warmth of the workshop wrapped around her like a blanket. She stood in the center of the room, dripping water onto the metal floor, her breathing uneven. Elias shut the door behind them, blocking out the storm. For a moment, she just stared at him, shoulders tight, body tense. Like a cornered animal not yet convinced it wasn't in danger. I do not wish to bring trouble," she said, voice shaking, "but I had nowhere else." Elias moved slowly, showing his hands so she wouldn't feel threatened. "You're not bringing trouble," he said quietly. "You're bringing yourself, and that's enough." A small breath escaped her, part relief, part disbelief. "My name," she murmured, touching her collar with trembling fingers, "is Lyra." The way she said it broke something in Elias. It was a name spoken like an apology, a confession of something she felt she shouldn't have. He shook his head gently. "Lyra," he repeated, "that's a beautiful name." Her eyes softened, but only slightly. She was exhausted, starving, and terrified. Elias grabbed a blanket from a shelf and wrapped it around her shoulders. She flinched at first, then slowly relaxed into the warmth. He guided her to a small seat near the heater. "What happened to you?" he asked gently, not wanting to push her too far. Lyra hesitated. Then, in a voice so soft it barely rose above the crackling heater, she said, "I escaped." The words hung heavy in the air. Elias felt a chill that had nothing to do with the weather. "Someone owns me," she whispered, "or they think they do." Her hand tightened on the collar. "They will come for me." Elias looked at her. This stranger, this frightened being, this soul who had risked everything for a chance at freedom. And he felt something deep, powerful, and unshakable settle inside him. "If they come," he said gently but firmly, "they'll have to go through me." Lyra's eyes widened, not in fear this time, but in something like hope. A spark, a tiny light in a long, dark tunnel. For the first time that night, she allowed herself to breathe. And for the first time in his life, Elias realized that opening his door would change everything. For her, for him, and for the future neither of them yet understood. Lyra sat wrapped in the warm blanket, her silver skin slowly drying in the soft glow of Elias' workshop. For the first time, the storm outside felt distant, and the fear that had clutched her chest for weeks loosened, just a little. But even in the warmth, she could not hide the truth. Elias moved around his cluttered workshop, fixing a small, broken device with practiced hands, but his eyes never left her. He noticed every tremble, every hesitation, every silent heartbeat that seemed to scream danger beneath her calm face. Finally, after a long silence, Lyra spoke. Her voice was quiet, almost a whisper, yet it carried the weight of years of suffering. They made me work in the mines," she said. "Every day, every hour, no rest, no hope, I was property." Her hands shook as she touched the collar still resting at her throat. "They said it belonged to them. I had to obey, or—" Her words faltered and she swallowed hard. "Or I would die." Elias' chest tightened. He had heard stories of corporate slavery in faraway systems, but they always seemed abstract. Statistics, reports, warnings on news feeds. But now, in front of him, was a living being whose body had been forced to endure cruelty, whose mind had been trapped in fear, whose heart had been nearly broken. "You shouldn't have had to live like that," he said softly, his voice shaking with anger he could barely contain. "No one should." Lyra looked up at him. For the first time, her eyes did not hold fear, they held something new, disbelief. "You would help me?" she asked. The words were small, almost broken, as if she could not believe that kindness existed. "You do not even know me." Elias shook his head slowly. "I don't need to know you," he said. "Humanity doesn't need a reason to do what is right." A pause. She studied him carefully, as if trying to measure whether this stranger could truly be trusted. The storm outside seemed to fade into silence, the rain becoming little more than a soft tapping on the roof. "They will come for me," Lyra whispered. "The corporation, the enforcers, they will not stop until I am returned." "I know," Elias said, his jaw tightening. "But you don't have to face them alone, not here, not now, not ever." Her lips trembled and a tear slid down her silver cheek. "You risk everything," she said quietly, voice trembling. "Why?" Elias did not answer immediately. He looked around his small workshop, at the broken machines he could repair, at the simple tools he could wield, and realized something that had taken him years to understand. "Because someone deserves to be free," he finally said. "And you deserve it more than anyone I've ever met." Her breath hitched. Lyra felt warmth, not just from the heater, but from the words themselves. No one had ever said anything like that to her before. No one had ever seen her as a person, not a tool, not a possession, not a thing to be used and discarded. Elias walked over to the workbench and picked up a small cup of tea he had brewed earlier. The scent of herbs filled the room. He handed it to her. "Drink. You need strength if we are going to face what comes next." Lyra held the cup with trembling hands. She sipped slowly, the warmth spreading through her body. For the first time in years, she felt a small measure of safety, a flicker of hope she thought she had lost forever. I do not understand why you care," she whispered. Humans, they usually look away. They pretend not to see. Elias sat across from her, his eyes gentle but firm. Some do, many do, but there are humans who cannot ignore someone in need, who cannot walk past injustice without stopping. I am one of them. Lyra looked down at the cup in her hands, her mind racing. She had escaped once, but freedom had always seemed temporary, fragile. Danger followed her like a shadow she could not shake. And yet here was this human, offering more than shelter, offering trust, offering protection, offering a chance at something she had never imagined, a life she could call her own. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The storm outside raged, but the workshop remained a small island of calm. And in that quiet, fragile space, a connection began to form, not just between rescuer and rescued, but between two beings who would soon change each other's lives forever. Finally, Lyra looked up. Her eyes, still wary, held something else now, determination. "Then we must plan," she said. "If I am to be free, we cannot wait. They will come for me soon." Elias nodded. His mind was already racing through options, possibilities, escape routes, and strategies. "Then we will plan," he said, "and we will face whatever comes together." For the first time in years, Lyra dared to hope. And Elias, for the first time in a long time, felt the stirrings of a purpose greater than himself. The storm outside continued to beat against the walls, but inside a quiet fire began to grow. A fire that would not be extinguished, no matter what came next. The morning light of 3 was pale and cold, slicing through the lingering storm clouds like a knife. The settlement was quiet. Only the sound of dripping water from the tin roofs and the soft hum of machinery filled the air. Inside his small workshop, Elias moved quietly, checking his tools and preparing for what he knew would come. Lyra sat near the heater, wrapped in a thick blanket, still trembling slightly. Though she had found a moment of safety, fear was never far behind. Every shadow seemed alive with threat, every sound a warning. She had escaped the corporation's mines, but freedom was fragile, and the hunters would not forgive her. "They will come soon," she whispered, her silver eyes meeting his. "I can feel them, they are close." Elias nodded. "I know, but we can be ready." The sound came first as a low, mechanical hum, then as heavy footsteps pounding through the wet dirt outside. The familiar black patrol shuttle of the mining corporation had landed. Its engines hissed and vibrated through the ground. Through the small window, Lyra saw them, armed enforcers, dressed in dark armor, moving with precision, scanning for any trace of her. Her breath caught. Elias could see the panic rising inside her, like a storm before the storm. "They're hunting me," she said, voice tight, "and they will not stop until I am back in chains." Elias moved closer, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. "They will not take you," he said quietly, "not while I am here." The enforcers stormed into the settlement. Their leader, tall and cold-eyed, carried authority in every motion. Elias could see the red glow of his scanners, identifying every life form in the workshop. Elias acted fast. He guided Lyra behind a stack of crates, giving her something to hide behind. "Stay low," he whispered. "Do exactly as I say." The first enforcer stepped into the workshop, boots clanging against the metal floor. "We are looking for a stolen asset," the leader barked. "A fugitive. She is dangerous." Lyra's heart pounded. Her collar, though hidden beneath her clothes now, still connected her to the tracking systems. One wrong move, one sound too loud, and they would find her. Elias stepped forward, hands raised slightly, showing he meant no threat. "You're wasting your time," he said calmly, his voice firm. "There is no one here but me." The enforcer moved closer, scanning the room. His gaze fell on the crates behind which Lyra crouched. For a moment the tension was unbearable. Lyra's breathing caught in her throat, each second stretching like hours. "You there," the leader snapped at Elias. "Step aside, we know she's here." Elias did not flinch. He took a steady breath. "I said there is no one here. I am not moving." The enforcers hesitated, confused by his confidence. The leader's eyes narrowed. Elias' heart pounded, but his mind was sharp. He knew that if they pushed, Lyra could be discovered, and if that happened, he could not protect her. Then Lyra moved slightly, almost unconsciously, and the red glow of her collar flashed through the gap in the crates. The leader's head snapped toward her. Elias lunged forward, placing himself between Lyra and the enforcer. "If you touch her," he said, voice low and dangerous, "you will have to go through me." For a long, tense moment, the enforcers froze. Humans were strange, thought Elias, small, fragile, and yet stubborn, unpredictable, and when they chose to protect someone, they became a wall impossible to break. The leader finally waved his men back. "Keep your eyes open," he growled. "She's dangerous. We will return." As they retreated, the hum of their shuttle faded into the distance, leaving the settlement quiet again. Lyra collapsed against the crates, trembling with relief. "You risked everything," she whispered, silver eyes wide with disbelief. "Why?" Elias shook his head gently, brushing a wet strand of hair from her face. "Because you deserve to be free," he said, "and because I cannot watch someone suffer and do nothing." Lyra's lips trembled. She had never heard words like that before, never felt someone see her as a person, not property, never felt hope like this, fragile but real. Elias helped her to her feet and wrapped the blanket more securely around her shoulders. "This is only the beginning," he said. "They will come back. We must prepare, but we will not fail." For the first time since she escaped, Lyra felt a spark of something she had not dared to feel in years. Trust. And even deeper than trust, a small, growing warmth she could not name. The storm outside had passed, leaving the world wet and cold. But inside the workshop a fire was kindling, one that neither rain, nor fear, nor hunters could extinguish. Together, Elias and Lyra began to plan. They did not yet know how, but they knew one thing: she would not be taken back. Not while he was alive, not while they still had a chance. The first confrontation had ended, but the battle for freedom was just beginning. The workshop was quiet now, but the tension between them was thick, almost physical. Lyra sat in a small chair near the heater, still wrapped in the thick blanket, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. The collar at her neck no longer glowed red, but it hummed softly, a constant reminder of the chains she still carried. Elias knelt in front of her workbench, tools spread out around him like an army ready for battle. His hands shook slightly, not from fear, but from the weight of what he was about to attempt. The collar was a marvel of cruel engineering, self-locking, self-charging, and rigged to release a deadly pulse if handled incorrectly. One wrong move, and it could end her life instantly. "You don't have to do this," Lyra said softly, her voice trembling. "It's too dangerous. You could get hurt." Elias shook his head. "I won't let anything happen to you. You've already survived so much. I'm not going to let a machine take that away." She looked down at the collar, her fingers brushing its cold metal. "I've been under this thing for years. It's part of me now. I don't even remember what freedom feels like." Elias' heart clenched. "Then we'll find out together." He examined the collar carefully, tracing the circuits, studying the small glowing nodes and planning each move in his mind. Every detail mattered. One slip, one spark, one overload, and it could all be over. Lyra watched him quietly, her eyes a mixture of fear and hope. She had learned to trust him, more than she trusted anyone in her life. Yet the thought of what might happen made her stomach twist with anxiety. Hours passed. Elias worked with meticulous patience, cutting wires, testing circuits, and carefully overriding the collar's security measures. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he leaned closer, concentrating so fully that the world outside the workshop seemed to disappear. "Almost there," he whispered, more to himself than to her. Lyra bit her lip, holding back the urge to panic. She wanted to look away to escape the fear, but she couldn't. Something inside her told her that she had to stay, to face this moment, to finally take her first real step toward freedom. A spark flew from the tools. Lyra flinched. Elias' hand shook slightly, but he kept working, adjusting the circuits with steady, deliberate movements. His jaw was tight, his mind focused like a laser. He could feel the tension in the room, the silent weight of hope and fear pressing down on them both. And then with a soft click, it happened. The collar, so long a prison around her neck, opened. No shock, no pain, just a soft, final release. Lyra's fingers went to her throat instinctively, feeling the emptiness where the metal had been. Tears pricked her eyes, and for a moment she could not speak. Elias leaned back, exhausted but smiling. "You're free," he said softly, his voice full of warmth. "Completely free." Lyra's knees wobbled, and Elias caught her before she fell. She hugged herself tightly, trembling not with fear but with relief. The tears she had held back for years finally came, sliding down her silver cheeks in shimmering streams. I can breathe," she whispered. I am free." Elias placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "Yes, you are." For a long time they sat like that, silent except for the quiet hum of the heater and the faint drip of rain outside. Lyra's breaths came faster now, lighter, each one a small celebration of her regained life. "You risked so much for me," she said finally, her voice still trembling. "Why?" Elias smiled softly, looking at her with eyes full of understanding. "Because no one should live in chains, and because you deserve to feel the sky, to feel wind, to feel hope again. I couldn't watch you suffer, not when I could help." Lyra's heart ached with a strange, unfamiliar warmth. For the first time in years, she felt safe. Not just physically safe, but truly safe. And in that moment, she realized something profound. Freedom was not just about removing a collar. Freedom was about having someone care enough to stand with you, to risk everything for you, and to believe in your worth even when the world did not. She looked at Elias, her silver eyes shimmering with gratitude and something deeper, a connection neither of them could yet name. I will never forget this," she whispered. "You've given me life again." Elias reached out, taking her hand gently. "And you've reminded me why it matters, why we fight, why we never give up." Outside, the storm clouds were breaking apart, revealing the first pale light of dawn. Inside the workshop, something stronger than the storm had been born. Trust, hope, and the beginning of a bond that would change both their lives forever. Lyra smiled through her tears, a small, fragile yet powerful smile. "Then we keep going," she said softly. "We keep moving forward together." Elias nodded, his heart steady now. "Together," he echoed. And for the first time in years, Lyra truly believed it. The days that followed were tense but filled with small victories. Elias and Lyra worked together quietly, preparing for the journey that would take her far from Three and the hunters who sought her. Every corner of his old cargo ship was checked, every engine tuned, every system tested. Supplies were packed, fuel tanks filled, and escape routes planned. It was meticulous work, but Elias worked with a steady determination, knowing the lives of both of them depended on it. Lyra moved through the workshop like a shadow at first, quiet, cautious, still learning what it meant to be free. Her movements were careful, measured, but Elias could see something shifting in her, the tension in her shoulders easing, the tremor in her hands lessening. With each small action, she reclaimed a piece of herself. "You are getting stronger every day," Elias remarked one morning, handing her a tool to tighten a loose panel on the ship. "You've been through so much, yet you still endure. It's remarkable." Lyra paused, the tool heavy in her hands, and looked at him with a faint smile. I am learning," she said softly. "I have not known freedom for so long, it feels strange but good." Elias nodded, smiling. It will feel strange at first, but eventually you will realize that this is life, your life, and no one can take it from you again. They worked in silence after that, the air filled with the soft hum of machines and the occasional clank of tools. The bond between them was growing, not only as protector and protected, but as two beings who had found trust and understanding in the harshest of circumstances. Lyra began to laugh quietly at small jokes Elias made, her silver eyes sparkling with amusement, a sound he realized he had been longing to hear. But the shadow of danger still loomed. Every day brought the risk of hunters arriving, of the corporation discovering her location. Elias knew they could not delay any longer. "We leave tomorrow," he said one evening, wiping grease from his hands. "At first light, the engines fire and we go. There's a small system beyond the outer rim, quiet, uninhabited, safe. We can land there and start over." Lyra's eyes widened. "Tomorrow," she whispered, fear and excitement mingled in her expression. "And what if they catch us?" Elias placed a steady hand on her shoulder, his grip gentle but firm. "We will not let them, I promise. Together we are stronger than they think, and this time you are not alone." She looked at him, her silver eyes reflecting the dim light of the workshop. Something unspoken passed between them, a bond forged in shared danger, in trust, in the knowledge that they would face the unknown side by side. The night passed slowly, filled with quiet preparation. Lyra packed the few belongings she had, a worn scarf, a small keepsake from her home world, and a tool she had grown attached to. Every item reminded her of the life she was leaving behind, and yet every item she carried forward symbolized her determination to survive. When dawn finally came, the sky over 3 was pale and still, the storm completely vanished. Elias and Lyra moved silently to the ship. Engines roared to life, the vibrations of power coursing through their bodies. The hatch closed behind them, sealing the world they were leaving, and the countdown began. "Are you ready?" Elias asked, looking at her. Lyra nodded, gripping his hand briefly. "I am," she said, voice steady, "because I trust you, because I believe in this chance in us." Elias' chest tightened. "Then hold on," he said, and the ship lifted, shaking as it rose above the settlement. Below, the world of fear, chains, and hunters began to shrink into the distance. As they broke through the atmosphere, Lyra pressed herself to the window, watching the clouds scatter beneath them. For the first time in years, she felt air and light that was truly hers. She turned to Elias, her silver eyes shimmering with gratitude and wonder. "You saved me," she whispered. "Not just from them, but from despair, from believing I would never live as myself again." Elias reached for her hand, holding it gently. "You saved yourself," he said. "I only helped you take the first step. The rest, you will live fully and you will thrive." And as the stars opened up before them, endless and vast, Lyra realized that freedom was no longer just a dream. It was real. It was alive. And for the first time, she believed that they could face anything together. The horizon stretched wide and bright, and the bond between human and alien, rescuer and rescued, was no longer just fragile trust. It had become the unbreakable foundation for a new life. The stars stretched endlessly around them, cold and silent, yet danger was closer than Lyra wanted to admit. Elias had been scanning their sensors for hours, and the faint blips of corporate patrol ships appeared on the display. They were faster, better armed, and ruthless, but they underestimated one thing: determination fueled by freedom. Lyra stood beside Elias at the control panel, hands resting lightly on the console. The hum of the ship filled the room, steady and reassuring. She had grown stronger during their journey, but the thought of the hunters closing in still sent a shiver through her silver-skinned body. "They're fast," she said quietly, eyes narrowing. "They will catch up if we do not act soon." Elias' jaw tightened. I know, but we have an advantage. They expect fear, hesitation, not courage. We will use that. Her gaze shifted to him, studying the calm in his eyes, the quiet confidence that came not from skill alone, but from the unshakable resolve to protect her. She realized how much she had come to rely on him, not just for survival, but for hope, for courage, for belief in herself. "They're coming closer," Elias said, voice low, scanning the readouts. "Prepare yourself." Lyra took a deep breath, steadying her racing heart. "I am ready," she said. Her voice was firm, though her hands trembled slightly. "Because I trust you, because we are together." The enemy patrol ships broke through the edge of the system, black silhouettes against the endless starlight. Drones swarmed ahead, firing pulses of energy that rattled the hull of their ship. The leader, the one who had cornered her on 3, appeared on the sensor with a cold, ruthless glare. "They won't stop," Lyra whispered. "No," Elias said, "and neither will we." The first shots hit the ship, sending it rocking violently. Lyra grabbed the railing, silver hair flying, heart pounding in her chest. Elias' hands moved swiftly, adjusting the shields, calculating evasive maneuvers and keeping the ship steady. "We have to fight," he said. "Not just to escape, but to make them hesitate long enough for us to reach the jump point." Lyra nodded, finding strength in his calm determination. She raised her hand instinctively, focusing her mind. Her telepathic ability, something she had barely used since escaping, surged outward in a pulse of light. The effect was immediate. Enemy sensors wavered, drones faltered, and the leader's expression changed to surprise. "Do it again," Elias shouted, guiding her. "Focus your energy, disrupt them." Her pulse radiated through the pursuing ships, creating confusion and fear. Elias maneuvered the ship through the chaos, weaving between laser fire, dodging energy blasts, and using the terrain of small asteroids in the system as cover. "You're incredible," Elias said, glancing at her. "I knew you were strong, but this is more than strength, it's courage." Lyra smiled, teeth flashing silver in the dim light. "I've never had a reason to fight before," she admitted, "but now I do." The patrol leader tried to regroup, but it was too late. Elias pushed the engines to their limits, diving through narrow gaps in the asteroid field, with Lyra's telepathic pulses keeping the hunters off balance. Each second brought them closer to the jump point, the edge of safety, the freedom they had risked everything for. Finally, the ship broke free of the asteroids and aligned with the jump point. The leader's ship was right behind them, weapons ready, engines screaming. Elias glanced at Lyra. "Now, together." With a silent nod, she focused her mind, sending one final surge of telepathic energy. The enemy ship shuddered, systems overloaded, and the drones faltered entirely. Elias hit the jump sequence. The stars stretched, warped, and then disappeared as they entered hyperspace. The tension inside the ship collapsed. Lyra sank to the floor, breathing heavily, tears brimming in her silver eyes. Elias knelt beside her, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. "You did it," he whispered. "We did it." She looked up at him, trembling and exhausted but radiant. "You believed in me," she said softly. "You risked everything for me. I don't even know how to thank you." Elias shook his head, smiling. "No thanks needed. You fought for yourself. I only helped you see that you could. That's all it ever was." For a long moment, they sat together in the quiet hum of the ship, knowing the danger had passed for now. The galaxy stretched around them, endless and full of possibility. And for the first time, Lyra allowed herself to imagine a life without chains, without fear, without hunters. "Freedom," she whispered. "It feels alive, and I want to live it fully, no regrets." Elias' eyes softened. "Then live it, and I'll be with you every step, because we are stronger together, and nothing can take that away from us." Outside, the stars rushed past as hyperspace carried them away from the hunters, away from the life she had fled and toward the life she had earned. A life of hope, a life of choice, a life that neither of them would ever forget. And in that quiet moment, among the stars and the hum of their ship, something new blossomed. A bond forged in danger, courage, and trust. A bond that would define both of their futures forever. The ship landed softly on a quiet world far beyond the reach of the corporation. The atmosphere was warm, with gentle winds that carried the scent of unknown flowers, and a sky that stretched endless and calm above them. Elias opened the hatch first, helping Lyra step onto the soft, green ground. She bent slightly, touching it with her hands, and for the first time in years, she felt the freedom she had fought so hard to claim. I can't believe this, Lyra whispered, silver eyes wide with wonder. No chains, no hunters, no fear. Elias smiled, watching her take careful steps, each one more confident than the last. It's yours, he said softly. All of it, you earned it. She turned to him, tears glistening. You risked everything to help me. Why? Because no one should ever live in chains, he replied, eyes meeting hers. And because you deserved a chance to live your life freely. That's all the reason I need. For a long moment, Lyra simply stood, breathing in the fresh air, the light, the warmth. The memories of her past, the mines, the collars, the fear were still there, shadows that tugged at her heart. But the pain was fading, replaced by a light she had almost forgotten existed. Hope, trust, life. Elias helped her find a suitable place near a stream, a small flat area where they could build shelter and make a home. Together, they cleared the land and worked quietly, setting up a small, simple dwelling. Every plank, every nail, every tool they placed was a promise of safety, freedom, and a life they would create together. At night, they sat outside the small home they had built, the stars stretching endlessly above them. Lyra leaned slightly against Elia's shoulder, her silver hair shimmering in the moonlight. I never imagined I could feel this, she said softly. To feel safe, to feel like I belong somewhere. You belong here, Elias said gently. And you belong with me. Whatever comes next, we face it together. She smiled, faint but genuine, and reached for his hand. I want to help you too, she whispered. Not just me being free, I want you to have a life you've never even dreamed of. Elias shook his head with a gentle laugh. We'll build it together. That's how life works. We fight for what matters and grow stronger because of it. Days turned into weeks, and the quiet world became their sanctuary. Lyra learned to tend the small garden they planted, to cook simple meals, and to enjoy the freedom of moving without fear. Elias repaired old machines and improved their shelter, often stealing glances at her as she laughed at something small and ordinary. It was in these ordinary moments that the extraordinary happened. The bond between them deepened into something neither had expected, a connection forged by trust, danger, and shared courage. They were no longer rescuer and rescued, human and alien. They were partners, friends, something more, something powerful. One evening, as the twin moons rose, Lyra turned to Elias. Her eyes shimmered with a mixture of gratitude, admiration, and something deeper. I escaped my chains, she said softly. But you freed my heart. Elias looked at her, his own heart swelling with an emotion he hadn't expected to feel so completely. And you've reminded me what it means to care, he said. To fight, to hope, to never give up. You've changed my life as much as I've changed yours. She leaned closer, brushing her hand against his. Then let us make the most of it, she said, voice steady. A life without fear, without chains, together. Elias nodded, gripping her hand gently but firmly. Together, he echoed. In the distance, the sun began to rise, spilling gold across the green world. Birds unknown to them sang, the wind whispered through tall grass, and the stream reflected the light like liquid silver. Freedom was not just a word. It was a living, breathing thing, and it surrounded them completely. And in that quiet, beautiful morning, Elias and Lyra knew that the battles of the past, the fear, the collars, the hunters, were over. Ahead of them was something more important: life, hope, love, and the endless possibilities of the universe. They had survived together. They had fought together. And now they would live together, their hearts and futures forever intertwined. As Lyra rested her head against Elia's shoulder, she whispered softly, "Thank you for believing in me." Elias smiled, wrapping an arm around her. "No, Lyra, thank you for trusting me, and for letting me be part of your life. Together, nothing can stop us now." And so, on that quiet world among the stars, two souls, human and alien, began the life they had dreamed of, free at last and transformed forever.